And we're back talking with Doyle, with State Representative Doyle Heffley, the indomitable Huntre Keip, and Chuck Nichols on the ones and twos. Representative Heffley, I understand that we're talking about election integrity. This means different things to different people, depending on where you stand. What are we talking about here?
So as we were getting ready for the 2024 primary election coming up in a few days, there was a couple bills on the House floor this week that the Democratic majority in the House put forth, and they're, they're designed to be campaign finance reforms, and it's interesting that there were a lot of amendments filed to these bills dealing with real election integrity steps, like voter ID. 70% of Pennsylvanians agree that we should have voter ID. You can't buy anything without an ID. You can't apply for public benefits. You can't get into a hospital. It's not that far of an ask. And yet the Speaker ruled all those amendments out of order.
Out of order, and I thought we were talking about election integrity. These things seem to be, right on down the pipe of election integrity. Out of order doesn't make any sense here.
Yeah, I mean the bills that we were running dealt with transparency around dark money, but ironically, the only place that they see dark money is on the conservative side of the aisle. They don't see any dark money. I mean, the folks that are running these bills are the same folks that took Zuckerbucks. Remember that? They took private money from a private individual, a private corporation, and then ran that through the Department of State and sent out grants to Democratic precincts to turn out the vote in 2020. I mean, that's corruption right there. Now that is no longer legal. I don't know that it ever was legal, but now these same folks now want to talk about transparency and finance reporting. If they want Pennsylvanians to feel more comfortable about the voting process, they would pass voter ID. They would let it at least come up for a vote on the floor. It passed before, it would pass again, but they won't let it come up for a vote.
And why are they stalling on this?
What's that saying? I think they protest too much. How does that?
They doth protest too much?
Yes. If you're that afraid of it, you want to talk about democracy. And look, we are a democracy, and I want to encourage everybody to go out and vote. Your vote will count, whether you vote by mail or in person. There's a lot of avenues to vote, and make sure that you vote. Make sure your vote is counted. And it's more smoke and mirrors from the majority party in the State House.
When you listen to most people talk about election integrity and election security and these types of things, the first thing that pops up is voter ID, making sure that one person, one vote. These are the types of things that matter in most people's minds. What were these bills really doing, or are they just fluff to make people feel better a little bit before an election?
Yeah, these bills that are coming out right now, they're not going to go anywhere in the Senate, and it's not a concerted effort to actually improve our election process. This is they're trying to score some political points, I guess, with their base, but it really goes back to just attacking their political foes. I mean, we see it like look at the national stage. I mean, my gosh, you have a presidential candidate who's continuing to be indicted by the Justice Department on things that have nothing to do with running for president. But I guess at the end of the day, really what I want to, the message that I want to get out is vote. Go out to the polls. Make sure you're voting in person, or make sure you're sending that mail-in ballot. If you don't think you're going to be out of town, make sure you get that mail-in ballot and get it submitted. Your vote will count. And I know this because I talked to a lot of election workers at the polling places. The Carbon County, my district, is a little bit different, or the 122nd district is a little bit, our voting area is a little bit different than others. But I can say that there's a lot of polling places right now that are actually looking for polling workers, a judge of elections, minority inspector, majority inspector, and we have somewhat of a seasoned poll worker with us here. Hunter, maybe you could enlighten us a little bit about some of your roles that you had and your family have taken on to make sure our elections are secure in Carbon County.
Yes, absolutely. I think I started during college, right after high school. And I started out as a poll worker, and then I worked a few election cycles, and typically throughout maybe within the last 50 years, someone in my family has always held a seat in the 3rd Ward in Summit Hill. And my grandmother did it, my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad, my godmother, and we all did it. And then starting in 2020, in the presidential election, I was actually judge of elections. And I think it's very rewarding. It's very important.
And I think it's important that people realize that these jobs are obtainable. Now, you have to run for office, right, to be the judge of elections. It's actually an elected position.
It is.
You fill out to get your name on the ballot. But I think sometimes, people will come in and they do question like election integrity. And we've seen with the debacle after 2020 when the PA Supreme Court rewrote election law and really, a lot of people questioned whether the elections were secure and they had faith in it because of the changes that the very liberal activist judges on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court made to our election code. But at the end of the day, I think if you bring it back to people like Hunter and her family and so many others, we travel around to the polls on election day, the poll workers that are working inside, they go for training. And they follow processes. It's not an exact science. Sometimes you go in and maybe there's a hiccup, but they're there to make sure that the process flows and that everybody counts. So what I would encourage people is to get involved. Get involved with your county elections board. Volunteer to be a poll worker for your political parties, if so, but also if you want to work for the county. And you're impartial. You can't wear campaign buttons or stickers. You're just making sure that whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, when they come in to vote, they're going to have a seamless process and their vote's going to be counted.
True election integrity, election security.
The point of being a poll worker or a judge of elections is to ensure a fair and equal election process and make sure that the day runs smoothly. So I do think it is very vital and valuable to the community and the districts, but you also get paid while doing it. So it's another added bonus.
So if you have the day off and you're looking for something to do, contact the Carbon County Elections Office, and they'll see they might have some openings available. They'll get with training, and you'll spend the day making sure that elections are fair. And that's the key. And I would love to advance some legislation here in the State House to provide for voter ID, to provide for much more election integrity and how the ballots are cast. But right now we got to get the majority back in order to do that.